The Gloomraider role-playing game doesn't have orcs in it. In this video, I'll go over why that is, so stay tuned. Hey there, thank you for watching this video. I am Bradley Lyle Data, creator of the Gloomraider Fantasy Adventure role-playing game. One of the products that I have for download at DriveThruRPG is a low-level monster book called Denizens of the Gloom. In it, it contains a select number of low-level classic D&D monsters that I will be adding more to. But if you've downloaded it and looked at its contents, you see a lot of the classic monsters like goblin, kobold, hobgoblin, ogre, that sort of thing. But what's missing is the orc. And you might initially be thinking that I just haven't added it yet. But no, I actually didn't put in the orc. And there's reasons for that. And that's what I'll be going over in this video. In short, the reason I'm leaving orcs out of Gloomraider is because the orcs have evolved over the years and through the additions of Dungeons and Dragons, and the kind of orc that I would put in my game matches what would be in the advanced Dungeons and Dragons from the late 70s. All the monsters that I'm putting in Gloomraider are based off of those monsters. That orc is not really that recognizable by a lot of players today. You have to be a pretty old school player for that orc to ring a bell to you. And I'm going to go over real quick what that orc is. So for those who don't know, we'll understand. So right here we have an image of the AD&D Monster Manual from 1977. And if you were to go and look at its entry, you will see an image of an orc that, if you're not familiar with this edition of D&D, might look very odd to you and may not look like an orc to you. And here's that image right here. They're like pig-faced humanoids. Pig-headed, actually, And along with that is their description, which says orcs appear particularly disgusting because of their coloration. Brown or brownish green with a bluish sheen. A lot of people think of orcs being greenskins. I think that influence comes from the Warhammer Fantasy game from Games Workshop, and then later by World of Warcraft. And I guess the brownish green skin from here kind of filtered into that. But as you can see here, they aren't just greenskins, according to the description from AD&D. And then it mentions highlights in their pinkish snouts and ears, which you can see evident in the picture here. And so obviously pig-like in appearance. They have bristly hair, dark brown or black, sometimes with tan patches. Even their armor tends to be unattractive, dirty, and often a bit rusty. Orcs favor unpleasant colors in general. Their garments are tribal colors, as are shield devices for trim. Typical colors are blood red, rust red, mustard yellow, yellow green, moss green, greenish purple, blackish brown. So that is the description given to orcs in the AD&D Monster Manual. And so if you started playing D&D then, like I did, that was an orc to you. I mean, I know there were orcs in the Lord of the Rings. Can't remember exactly how they were described, but I don't think they were this way. So this is specifically a D&D orc. The demeanor of them, they were chaotic evil in alignment, and it says here orcs are cruel and hate living things in general, but they particularly hate elves and will always attack them in preference to other creatures. They take slaves for food, work, food, and entertainment, torture, etc., but not elves, whom they'll kill immediately. Also in this Monster Manual entries, the half-orcs, which I'll bring up. It's not particularly relevant, but it is interesting nonetheless. how half-orcs are described. As orcs will breed with anything, there are any number of unsavory mongrels with orcish blood, particularly orc goblins, orc goblins, and orc humans. Orcs cannot crossbreed with elves. Half orcs tend to favor the orcish strain heavily, so such sorts are basically orcs, although they can sometimes 10% pass themselves off as a true creature of their other stock, goblins, hobgoblins, humans, etc. In the AD&D Player's Handbook, the half-orc was a race available for players to choose. And I'll go over the description in there real quick. And that's the cover of the Player's Handbook from AD&D. Orcs are found, orcs are fecund and create many crossbreeds. Fecund means just breed a lot, propagate, have lots of little ones. Most of the offspring, such being typical orcish, however, some 1/10 of orc human mongrels are sufficiently non-orcish to pass for humans. And mentions going to the Monster Manual for more details. So here again, the 10% chance of looking human. And as it is assumed that a player character which are of half-orc race are within the superior 10%, they have a certain advantage. So in the Player's Handbook, it says you can be half-orc, but the half-orcs don't look orc. And they, I think, gave +2 to strength, but like maybe it's +1 to strength, -2 to charisma, something like that. I could look it up, but point is that when you played a half-orc, it didn't look very orc. It would be like an ugly human or something, and that's sort of the way the game was. That was AD&D Orcs and half-orcs for those who grew up playing that game. And if you are a new player, you'll be like, that's so alien to me. And if you've played since back then, you will recognize how much the orc has evolved. I believe it was in 3rd edition D&D when you saw the entry for half-orc. To my eyes, when I looked at it, I'm like, that looks like a hobgoblin. How I picture a hobgoblin looking. But the point being, it didn't really look human. It looked like some kind of beast humanoid. And but it didn't really look orc either. It didn't have the pig snout and such. So I wasn't sure what it was. But that's how things have evolved. I'll go over a little bit later how their looks evolved. This is interesting here. I like this art by Doug Caffey. And this is a colored picture of the orc, which matches very closely to the AD&D Monster Manual description. I would say that skin kind of matches the description, and then especially the pinkish snouts and ears. So this is what an AD&D orc would look like, and this is what a Gloomraider orc would look like. So you can imagine when I'm thinking of putting an orc in the game, players may not understand why my orc looks the way it does and what have you. So I decided to leave it out, sort of. I'll get that in a minute. Here's a refresher on the appearance. Brown or brownish green with bluish sheen skin. I mean, the artist did a really good job of trying to do that. And then the pinkish snouts and ears. Here's another image by the same artist, but black and white. And there you can see the obvious pink snouts and what have you. And now here's a walkthrough of the orcs through the editions. So here's the orc from AD&D. And then when 2nd edition AD&D came out, in the Monster Manual, the orc looked like that. 3rd edition, the orc changed again in its looks. I don't know if you'd call that a pig snout, but definitely not much of a nose. But you can see it's kind of evolving into a more barbaric, bestial creature. And here's a 5th edition orc. Now just take a quick gander at that versus the AD&D orc. I mean, would you think those are the same creature? And then the Orc in the latest 2024 release of 5.5e. So now you see my quandary of wanting to use the AD&D creature of Orc and how that would just be so odd to some of the new players. So although I did not include the Orc, I did include a monster, and I changed its name, and I changed it to Auroch. That is my Orc. So here's the book, Denizens of the Gloom. On the cover is the way the orcs look in my game, and they're called Aurochs. So real quick, we'll look at the entry for them. Auroch. I wrote here for description, created, not born, brutish, evil humanoid with protruding pinkish, pig-like snout and pointy ears, yellowish tusks, brownish green skin, and bristly dark-colored hair. So that's sort of a summary. I try to summarize the look from the AD&D Monster Manual. I didn't want it to be too long, just really quick to read. And so the Auroch would be the orc in the game. So if you like orc, just start calling that orc. And there you go. It's all done in that respect. Something that isn't listed here, and it's the a more advanced orc, and I call it a Borak. And the Boraks would look like orcs, except for more hairy, more boar-like. And here's a rendering I saw online that would be a lot more like what a Borak would look like. So, anyway, there you have it. Although I don't have orc in Gloomraider officially, I have a similar creature called the Auroch. And I separated it out. Let me go back real quick. If you notice, it says a level 2 humanoid. And if we go to, let's say Kobold is humanoid. Hobgoblin, it mentions goblinoid. So in my game, I believe orcs were considered more like goblinoid kind of creatures. But in my game, I changed it to Auroch, and they're more humanoid. So they're not related to goblins and hobgoblins and that sort. So you got goblins, also goblinoid. A gnoll is a humanoid. And so if you look under in the beginning, humanoid refer to a creature that are similar size and shape to human beings in regards to body that walks upright, to arms, to legs, head upon shoulders. It's humanoid, descriptive term. Does not convey any racial relation to other humanoids. And then you got the demi-humans, which denote humanoids that present more human-like in appearance and disposition. Being demi-human does not convey any racial relation to humans. Non-human demi-humans would never refer to themselves as demi-human. It's only a descriptive term to differentiate humanoids that are more similar to humans. And then you got your goblinoids, which denote humanoids that present more goblin-like in appearance and disposition. Being goblinoid does convey some sort of racial relation to goblins. So I made a distinction there as well. Anyways, I think that's it. I hope that made some sense. And honestly, though, if you want to play Gloomraider and you want orcs, you just call the Aurochs orcs, and there you go. And of course, as the Gloom Master, you can change the look of them however you want. But like I said, for Gloomraider, I went back to AD&D for its inspiration, as well as some other earlier editions like Mold Vase, Basic D&D box set, even Holmes, Dungeons & Dragons box set. And yeah, so there you have it. Hope you like this video. And if there's other videos you'd like me to do in particular, feel free to put a comment in the comment section letting me know, and I'll see about doing that. But in the meantime, until the next video, in Tenebras, take care.